It is a pleasure to have Mark Selby join us, CEO of Canada Nickel. Mark, thank you for joining Grizzle.
Thanks, guys. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Now, Mark, you've released some news that two different press releases this year. I say either one of them could be the most important press release in Canada Nickel's history. I think there's not an argument there. So I wanted to talk more about these partners that are now backing Canada Nickel. So adding it all up, you have three major partners now, Agnico Eagle, Anglo American, and Samsung. They're supporting the development of Crawford. Now, are these essentially three major players in global mining that did their due diligence on the potential of bulk tonnage, ultramafic nickel deposits? And then they said, yes, we think they can be successfully built and economically operated. Is that how we should take it?
Oh, no, 100%, and the great thing is, a lot of institutional investors, still haven't been able to, want to do the work to get their head around, what these deposits really mean. And so now, with Anglo American coming in about a year ago, they're one of the five largest mining companies globally. You've got Agnico Eagle, who's, the largest mining company in Canada. They operate two big bulk tonnage gold open pits in our neighborhood. And so the fact that, they're looking at a big bulk tonnage nickel deposit, shouldn't be a huge surprise, to a lot of people, and then Samsung SDI, I've talked a lot about needing nickel from North America to supply North America. And, again, it's great that they've decided, for us to be, one of they're basically Samsung SDI's first mining investment.
Now, I wanted to expand a little bit on what Samsung's rationale was here. Is this basically saying, is this showing their view that there's potential for Canada to become not only a major producer of battery metals, but also a processor, like a battery hub overall?
Oh, 100%. So again, in terms of, these big bulk tonnage deposits, question marks, do these things really work? The two mining companies coming in, I think sort of, pokes a big hole, in that narrative. The other sort of narrative that's been overhanging, the whole nickel sector is, Indonesia is going to flood the market. Why bother with any of these Canadian nickel projects? Do we really need them? This is an Asian battery producer. They're one of the largest battery producers globally in Asia. So they've decided to come to Canada to source nickel. They're basically, putting a value on the project. If they buy a 10% stake, they've got that option as part of the initial equity investment, values the company at $1 billion US or 1.4 billion Canadian, about 5 times our current market cap. They're doing that because they want IRA compliant, local, clean, green supply. We've had 2 smelter explosions in Indonesia. That's not the kind of nickel that high-end brands, North American, European car makers, want to be associated with. So I think this will be the first of many deals. One of the other companies in the space, FPX, got Sumitomo Metal Mining in. Again, Asian mining company that's been very successful with HPAL projects outside of Indonesia. One of the only companies that have done this, and they're also coming to Canada for these big bulk tonnage deposits. So, I think a lot of people are waking up to to those set of facts.
So, Mark, just so I'm certain, the way we should think about this is localized supply chains front to back. Is that how we should think about the EV revolution as, the next chapter?
100%. Car companies, they like their supply chains as tight and as close as home to possible. And given the geopolitics, the complexity with the fact that most of that Indonesian supply is Chinese controlled, that's a whole other dimension to really create these localized supply chains. Again, whether it's a Republican government or a Democratic government in the next 4 years, that's the one thing both of them agree on. They need to get China out of the supply chain, and these kinds of investments that you're seeing, you're going to see a lot more of over the next 18 months.
Now, Mark, importantly, where I sit, it looks like these strategic investors, they're not just financial investors that give you some money and that's about it. These are strategic investments as well. Is that kind of a fair way to take these partnerships?
Oh, 100%. And the nice thing is, each of them has a sort of very distinct angle in terms of, what the strategic value is from their investment. So, Anglo American, as part of the announcement, talked about their future smart suite of technologies where they think they can unlock, additional value from these types of deposits. Agnico Eagle basically did the back end of a charity flow through that gives us $35 million of exploration dollars to spend this year. And so, we've been talking about, in addition to Crawford, we think we've got a half a dozen Crawfords in the deposit. We've got 25 times the target geophysical footprint. And with that $35 million from Agnico, we can really look at expanding, what is already the second largest, nickel resource globally, and really unlock the potential of what we're calling the Timmins Nickel District. And then Samsung SDI, what's in it for them is really around the offtake. So, as part of that joint venture deal, if they purchase a stake in the project, they also, get the right to an additional 20% offtake for the first 15 years. So it's a nice fit of all three companies in the story.
Yeah. So if these are strategic investors, should we kind of assume that you're thinking they have a desire to maintain their ownership percentage as you go through that period of fully funding Crawford, deciding on construction?
Well, we'll see. I mean, every company, you'll have to ask them at that time, and there's different ebbs and flows in terms of capital and so forth. The key thing now is, sort of now that we're through this phase, we're kicking off the full project financing approach, where our goal is to have the full $2 billion we need to build the project in hand, before the end of the year. We're working with Scotia and Deutsche Bank. So you'll see other very, project specific and some additional offtake partners who come in, who again will have, parts of that funding package in place. Again, Samsung as part of their deal, that's $100 million US, that comes to us, to help advance the project. And so, that's about 100 out of the 800 we need, already out the door. And again, we expect a huge amount of money to come from the government. Having those three partners in the story start of the year, that getting that government money and as much government money as possible is a major focus for the company this year.
No, Mark, I wanted to go back to the terms of that deal with Samsung. It sounds like pretty important, where you basically put a floor under the value of Crawford, because they're saying we'll pay this amount, value Crawford at this, and it sets the stage for where the valuation of the company could go, because it's obviously multiples higher than where you trade today. Is that the right way to look at it? No,
that's exactly the right way to look at it. That valuation was, we've been talking to them for 2 years. So, those numbers are primarily driven off of the PEA. Going forward now, with the feasibility study, you've seen, some other high quality projects like, Arizona Sonoran do an option deal, again, where you're seeing that anchor point off, studies that are before final feasibility study and getting them at a 0.6 times NAV. Historically, when you look at a world-class base metal project, they can easily, be investments valued at 0.8 to 1 times NAV. And given, the valuation for the feasibility study was $2.5 billion US, we're looking for some pretty chunky checks, from the investors in this, in this final round to be able to get construction going, just under a year and a half from now.
Now, you said in your presentation, I was looking at your most recent one, that there are more offtake deal announcements to come. I just was curious, do you have a target of what percentage of Crawford's production you'd kind of like to tie up in these types of offtake announcements overall?
Yeah, somewhere between sort of 60 to 80%, of the main nickel, and probably, a similar amount on the iron chrome, which also has some nickel in it. So we probably have room for, another chunky battery automobile maker. And again, we've got people pounding on the door looking for that, clean green IRA compliant nickel. And then, on the iron chrome perspective, we're talking to ferroalloy producers and stainless steel producers. And again, look to have somebody, come in on an offtake and the downstream processing of those materials as well. So yeah, you'll see some more deals happen as the year goes on.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of why we're so constructive on Canada Nickel, because I know that from your exploration results, Crawford is kind of the first step. So it makes sense to us why you'd be willing to, sign a good chunk of that offtake, because you just want to prove the Timmins Nickel District, and then you have these other exploration plays that will eventually be world-class mines as well.
Yeah, we see Crawford as the template. I don't think anyone on our team thinks Crawford is actually the best deposit that we have. 11 of the 20 plus targets that we have a bigger geophysical footprint than Crawford. And so, we're really excited the fact that Agnico Eagle's given us this $35 million to do a good deep dive, across a number of those projects. And I think, again, you'll see some pretty exciting and some pretty chunky, improvements in our overall nickel resource as the year goes on.
It's very interesting. Now, I just was hoping to get a little update from you on nickel, because I know you know the market better than almost anyone. Now, the last 12 months have been a little difficult from pricing. Just there was kind of a flood of supply from Indonesia, but I'm seeing some announcements of certain mines shutting down in Australia and other places. It's being spun negatively in the media, but for those of us that have been in mining for a long time, isn't that generally a sign that the market is starting to heal and there'll be a better balance in supply and demand, which could mean higher prices going to the Crawford startup?
Yeah, no, bang on. This is a classic capitulation moment, which is, a great sign of a bottom. Through most of last year, I saw nickel prices crashing down below 20,000 for a period of time. It actually hung on for far longer than I thought it would. And the other part of it was, we've seen lithium prices crashing all year long, and that was a key factor in the market because it caused the entire battery supply chain to destock in a major way. Underlying demand for nickel in batteries was up 40%. The actual amount of physical nickel that got added into the chain last year was only up 4%. So we were setting up already, for what I would, call a massive restocking rally. And again, I think it'll start to kick into gear post Chinese New Year. And, I expect to see double-digit demand growth from nickel. We got 17% in 2021. Not sure we'll quite get to that number, but I think you'll see, overall nickel demand growth by year end, in a pretty meaningful double-digit way, which again, people aren't expecting. And this capitulation moment just underscores that, we're really seeing this bottom set in. And so I think, as dismal as it seems right now, this is I think going to set the stage for a great 2024. And just for reference, back in the big bull run with China, again, everybody just thought, oh, that was a giant straight line. But the reality is we went through some of these massive destocking, restocking cycles. At the end of 2005, we went through one of those cycles. Prices had come from, north of $20,000 a ton down to $11,000 a ton. People were saying nickel's over. 16 months later, nickel prices were $54,000 a ton.
Yeah, it's powerful to know your history there. Also, recently, haven't demand numbers in nickel been actually coming in higher than expectations if you look at, say, the past 3 or 4 years?
Oh, 100%. If you look at nickel demand growth since 2020, despite interest rates going up 5x, despite China underperforming, despite, now people think, the EV hype's, all over, the reality is we saw 9% average nickel demand growth in the first 3 years of this decade. That's triple most of the other sort of bigger base metals. And, we're now just shifting into the EV markets where you need big batteries for big cars like North America. So it's not as much China and Europe, driving, the EV volumes. It's increasingly going to start to become North America, and most of the batteries in North America are going to be big, and they're going to have lots of nickel in them. So if we've done 9% for the first 3 years, who knows what we're going to do through the balance of the decade.
Great. Mark, and just to confirm, Mark, bigger picture. Obviously the Ford F-150. You're getting all these rumblings that we're peaking out in terms of incremental growth and demand. Just want to confirm from you, you're obviously close to the OEMs and you're seeing what's in the pipe. Just maybe your thoughts on what inning we're in for EVs. Our own personal view is we're still bottom of the third, but it would love to kind of get your take.
Oh no, bottom of the third. I would even, maybe even bottom of the second. In terms of the impact, on nickel demand, we really are just entering that really, chunky part of the cycle. And again, I can tell you that the car companies are banging on the door, looking for some pretty substantial volumes, for later this decade. And then just the numbers, again, despite certain models having some issues, year over year growth in the United States was up 38%. Yeah. We exited the year, again, despite all these headlines, just for the month of December, it was a 32% increase between, EVs and plug-in hybrids, over the preceding December. So, that doesn't look like the world's collapsing. And if we only do, 25, 30%, for the next while, I think we'll all be doing okay. So
that ends up being some big numbers quickly when you compound at 25% on anything.
100%.
Yeah. So Mark, this has been a great conversation. I was thinking just to end things off, you're getting closer and closer to some major project milestones. Could you maybe take us through the remaining key milestones until you begin construction of Crawford and kind of when you expect these catalysts may hit?
Yeah. So the first one, now that we got our first offtake deal in place, the first thing is going to be on the permitting front. We will file the impact statement in mid-year. That'll effectively complete the second phase of the federal process and puts the government on a 365-day clock to come back with an answer. And we expect to get that permit by mid-2025. We're looking to have the full financing package in place by the end of the year. So that, when that permit comes, if it comes early in 2025, we'll be ready to go. That's there. And then the other component that we'll be head down on, and ramping up through the year is the detail engineering. Feasibility studies, only do about 10 to 15% engineering, and you need to do a whole lot more of that, before you can put a shovel in the ground. And again, we want to be shovel ready when that permit starts. So, as the year progresses, we're going to be ramping up the detail engineering. There won't be too many sort of specific milestones there, but in terms of Crawford, that's what you're going to see. And then on the exploration side, we're going to have anywhere from 3 to 5 drill rigs running most of this year. So you'll see, once we get going by March, April, you're going to see a steady flow of drill results from the regional properties, and then a bunch of different resource statements come out as the year goes on.
And 2025 isn't actually that far away. It feels like 5 minutes ago was 2020, but we're actually at a point now where 2025 is kind of just around the corner.
Oh no, 100%. That's exactly it. When we got going on the company back in late 2019, 2025 seemed like, it's a long way off, but literally, right now at the outside, we're 17 months away from a construction decision.
Yeah.
So,
Mark, it's very exciting developments. It's been fantastic start to a new year. We're proud and happy shareholders, and we're looking forward to a very prosperous 2024. And glad to have a Canadian battery metal. I was going to say Canadian nickel champion, not just a Canadian nickel champion, Canadian battery metals champion in the corner. So very excited. Thank you, Mark.
No, thanks, guys, and thanks for your support. It's been great.
Great. Thank you.